Hey everyone, Micah here with EbikeSchool.com. Welcome back to the next part of the series where I am converting this 1969 Honda Sports Cub motorcycle into an electric motorcycle. Last time you guys saw it, I was removing the engine and I sent it down to my parents' place where my dad is kindly letting me use his garage and his welder to finish up the last few steps. So now I'm going to be chopping up this swing arm so I can fit the motor into it and to fabricate the battery box that's going to go about where the engine was here in the middle of the bike. After that, it'll basically be a functional electric motorcycle, and I'll have a few other finishing touches. But we're going to start with the larger metalwork fabrication project. So let's get to it. Now, first things first, I'm starting with getting rid of the old wheel because this is going to be replaced by the hub motor wheel. That's also the reason why I need to modify this rear swing arm, because it needs to be wider to accept the fat hub motor hub that I'm going to swap into it. I'm going to try to save as much of this hardware and bodywork as possible too, like this chain guard, which isn't really a necessary piece anymore since I don't have a chain, but I think it kind of brings together the look of the bike. Yeah, a lot of these parts haven't been removed in probably the 50 years this thing has been alive, so some of this has taken a little bit of extra love and attention to get this off. Well, I think we're close on the suspension struts here. This would be a nice time to have a ratchet box wrench. There we go. Whew, that feels good. With the suspension struts removed from the swing arm and the axle already out of the wheel, at this point I could simply roll the wheel out, though that meant lifting the motorcycle up so I could clear the rear fender. Yeah, you can't just pick up most motorcycles and work on that. From there I can actually move on to my main goal, which is to get this swing arm out so I can do the modifications that it needs. There's a 10mm bolt that serves as the swing arm axle, though I'm going to need to replace it with a longer bolt once I widen the swing arm. Whew, alright. Alright, time to cut this thing up. To get the swing arm wide enough, I'll need to add an extra 2 inches or so into the crossbar. I'm cutting out the section that was compressed into a D profile at the factory so that I can slip some new thick wall pipe over it and basically build myself a new, longer crossbar that should theoretically be even stronger than the original one. And as anyone who has ever cut through thick steel on a bandsaw knows, this is not a quick process. Once I was through, I cleaned up the paint on the edges of the original crossbar so that I could have a clean area to weld to. I also slotted the ends of the dropouts since they were just oval slots before for a through axle, and I need them to be open-ended slots to accept a solid axle. But don't worry, I've got plans to turn these into clamping dropouts soon. Here's a look at the next problem I crossed, which was a lot more annoying than just widening the crossbar. The dropout here on the left is 15mm wide, and the dropout on the right is 12.6mm wide. This is how they came from the factory. The problem is that I need them to be 12mm wide to fit my hub motor axles and prevent the axles from spinning. I'll also have torque arms, but the actual dropouts are the first defense to resist the extreme torque of the motor. So that means I had to plan to fill both of these dropouts with steel to get them back down to 12mm. For the larger 15mm dropout, my plan was to cut and weld in a 3mm spacer to the dropout that would also include an extension that would serve as half of the clamping dropouts, and then on the other side here I would weld on the matching clamping surface. This piece seems to fit nicely, so next I prepared the swing arm for welding by removing paint from the surface, and also by beveling the edge so I had somewhere for the weld to flow into and give me better penetration between the old steel and the new. Once that was ready, I welded it into place so that it would effectively become one with the swing arm steel, and it'd be just like I had a 12mm gap there the whole time. also went back and welded on that second piece that would become the matching surface for the clamping dropouts. Here's what those look like when the swing arm halves are bolted back onto the motor. Keep in mind this is before a bit more cleanup and obviously before painting, but they already look pretty decent, if I may say so myself. From here, a bolt will be passed through these two extension plates, and then I can bolt those together and it just adds more clamping force onto the flat part of the motor's axle. But I can't stop there, because next I have to finish up the new crossbar to widen the swing arm. This comes from a piece of chromoly steel that I cut to slip over the short stubs of the old crossbar that I left on the swing arm. It slipped over the stubs pretty well, but clamping it with a pipe clamp held it in place nicely. This was a weird thing to try and clamp too, so shout out to my dad who had the great idea of actually passing the pipe through the piece to clamp it in place. So you know when you're working on a project and everything is just a pile of parts and you can't really see the forest for the trees yet, and then suddenly things start to come together and you really get a sense of what you're building? This is that moment here, because I finally got the swing arm back together, or at least clamped together, with this new pipe in here to widen it to fit my motor, and now it is time to go ahead and weld this up and return the swing arm to the bike, so let's get to it. I left the motor in place while I tacked and welded to ensure that everything stayed properly in position, and I also tried to cover it as well as I could to protect the swing arm and the motor from weld splatter. At this point, the swing arm is basically complete, minus painting it to match the original black. The next step is to create a battery box that will fill that space where the engine used to be. To do this, I plan to create a fairly simple 6-sided box that I dubbed the shoebox, and it would have 5 sides welded in place with the 6th side bolted on to allow me to install the battery and then access it if it ever needs maintenance. Once I have the basic shape of the box, I can go back later and add panels to it to give it some nice design, or even 3D print some kind of covering to hide it further and make it look a bit more mechanical, like the original engine block, though I don't really want to make it look exactly like the engine, because the goal is more to just give it more of an interesting look that hides that boring square box and not make this thing look like it's still a gas motorcycle. Now to do the actual fabrication, I cut the pieces out of 1/8" steel plate, though I must have missed capturing that on film, maybe because of the extreme boredom of standing at the bandsaw for over an hour to just cut out 4 simple pieces. But once I got those cut out, it was time to mock it up on the table and weld it into place to get my final box shape. At this point, I want to give another shout out to my dad, not just for letting me use his welder and his gear, but also for helping me get refreshed on welding. I haven't welded in 7 or 8 years, basically since college when I used to build all sorts of weird stuff. So it was great to get back into it because it's really quite fun. Woodworking and other softer materials are a lot easier to get started in, and a lot easier to do in an apartment, which is why I've stuck with them. But metal fabrication has its own sort of sense of pride because of the durability and perceived permanence of what you're building. But enough rambling, back to the project. At this stage I've got 4 sides of the battery box welded up, enough to hold a battery, at least temporarily, and now I want to get that swing arm back into the bike with the motor and wheel in it. To do that, I've first got to get the old tire onto the new rim. However, I ran into a bit of a snag when I forgot that I didn't have motorcycle level tire levers, and I gave it a go with a flathead screwdriver and an old oyster knife. But that's not really ideal, and of course it did not work. There's not really a good substitute for true tire spoons. Alright, so here's the deal. I was not making progress with the oyster knife and flathead screwdrivers, and I did not want to booger up that rim. So I called around, found the only shop in town that had some tire spoons. Carlos is very nice, put them on hold for me, so I'm going to go pick them up so I can finally get this tire on. Man, this is a big shop. There they are, the object of my affection. Alright, I'm guessing I need the smaller ones and not the bigger one, but I'm getting them all just in case. Hey, look at this. It's like the modern day version of mine. Honda Super Cub. Be cooler if it was electric though. Alright, got my tire spoons and it is time to get back to work. Alright, so I got some regular tire irons and something called the convincer. I think these are gonna work, so let's start with these. Alright, there we go. We're in and we didn't even need the convincer. Next step, get this in the bike. And I'm finally getting that swing arm back into the bike now. I've got my new 12-inch long bolt so it can fit, though I do need to cut some spacers here since there's about an inch gap on either side between the swing arm and the frame. That's something I was prepared for. I also need to mount the suspension struts further outboard so they line up with the swing arm, which, to be honest, I was not prepared for and I completely forgot about until I got the swing arm back on the bike, and that fact became plainly obvious. In the meantime, I just put some extra long bolts in there, so at least I could turn the bike into a roller. Next, I started taking just a little bit out of the frame so that I could sit the battery box a bit further back and make a little more clearance for the front fender. I know it looks way too close for comfort here, but it will actually sit further back when it's not just held up by straps, and when I get the final mounts onto the battery box here to connect it to the frame at the points where the engine block was originally mounted. Alright, so I've got the battery box basically formed here, at least the outer portion of it. It's obviously missing two sides. The far side is going to be welded on, and then this side is going to be bolted on. I think what I'm going to do is cut those out in a bit of a more teardrop shape, something to sort of follow some of the lines that are already on the bike here. But I will cross that bridge when I get there. In terms of mounting this battery box, there are two mounting points, one here, one here. This is where the original engine block was mounted, so I'm going to use those same points, and I will have some sort of strut coming up here that I'll have to weld onto the top of the battery box that will bolt through in both of these locations. It's gonna have to sit a little bit further back, and then I just barely have clearance here for the wheel and the fender. But it's, as long as it clears, right? I'm not going to start that just yet. What I want to do now is get the electrical portion connected just enough to sort of do a bench test here and see that everything is functional and that this is going to work when it all comes together. So let's set up the electrical connections now. All right, here's my Saboton controller. Just in case you guys don't remember from the previous episodes, this is going to be running on a 72 volt system. I've already built my 72 volt 40 amp hour, I believe. Yeah, technically it's like a 42 amp hour, but it's probably more like 40 usable amp hours. So it's just under 3 kilowatt hours of capacity. I've got a throttle that came with the kit. There's a LCD display that I'm not a huge fan of. I might just delete that altogether because it kind of ruins the classic look of the bike. And then there's some brake cutoffs as well. This whole kit, by the way, came from EM3EV. It's just a really great way to get everything all together. I highly recommend them as a vendor if you're looking for high-powered electric bike or low-powered electric motorcycle parts. All right, now let's start making some connections. Okay, the battery and the motor wires, or at least the motor phase wires, get bolted onto the controller here. All right, now we can do those motor wires. Again, this is just the big wires, these are the phase wires. All right, so there are the phase wires. You actually get here a second set of hall wires. You get two sets of hall wires. These are the most likely to get damaged, so they just run a second set in there. So you just need to plug in one of these, of course. And then all of the other connections come through a single wire here. So this is going to be our display, our throttle, and our brake cutoffs. And we get a long extension wire, which is nice. So we can basically put this pretty much anywhere. That's another problem I haven't quite solved yet, is where I'm going to put this controller when everything is said and done. My goal had been to hide it inside the frame here. This is where the original tiny little 6-volt battery was, but it's a little tight in here and I don't know how it's going to work yet. I want to avoid having to stick it on top of the battery box, but that might be the only option. The tank is kind of full of the frame member in the middle, so I don't think there's going to be room in here to get the giant controller in there. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there soon. All right, so here's the throttle, and we need the display and controller off to the side. It's amazing how you scale up to a motorcycle, but everything looks the same as e-bike parts, because really it's all the same. All right, and I should probably plug in at least one of the brake levers, just in case something goes wrong. I can always pull a brake lever and cut power. All right, brake lever. Again, this looks straight up like every other e-bike brake lever I've ever seen. All right, so we've got basically everything connected electrically except for the battery. So let's go grab the battery. Oh man, this thing is heavy. All right. Whew, that's a big battery. Let's see where I can put all this. All right, so the last thing to do here is just to plug in the battery, provide power to the controller, and hopefully there is no fireball here. It just fires right up. So here goes nothing. A little pop is normal. So let's do the on button for the display. Welcome, it's a good sign. All right. It's a little weird having everything sort of like disemboweled here. You can't do this with a normal motorcycle. All right, so theoretically, we should get some motion now. Here goes a little throttle. And I'm not getting anything. What's going on? All right, 71.1 volts. Let's go up into a higher gear here. Well, this is unexpected. All right, what have we missed? Let's try swapping out the hall connectors. Turn it off first. I'm gonna switch the hall connectors here. Let's go back on. Okay, not getting anything. Ah, the brake lever is open. So there's a cutoff. There's like a safety cutoff. Now, as I close this, we should be good. All right, and there actually was a little indicator on the screen, which is how I realized that. There's a little exclamation point to let you know. All right, let's try this again. There we go. All right, that is a functioning, albeit disemboweled, electric motorcycle. Let's see. So that's running at 18 kilometers an hour, so there's about 11 miles an hour right there. All right, well that's heartening, right? So now we know the electrical system is working, even if we had a bit of a scare there in the beginning. In terms of steps that are left to do, got to connect the battery box here to the frame, got to finish the sides of it, and I have to figure out where I'm going to stash that controller, and hopefully I can still get it into the frame here, but we'll see how that fits. As it stands, I have a flight back to Tel Aviv I need to catch, so this is unfortunately going to have to be the end of this episode, but don't worry, in the next episode I plan to finish everything and there won't be such a long gap between episodes in this project again, I can promise you guys that. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you found this fun and interesting, and I hope you'll stick with me for the next and I believe last installment of this series, where I finish up this electric motorcycle and we finally take it for its long-awaited maiden voyage. Last but not least, we need to announce the winner of the giveaway from my last video, and the randomly selected commenter is BM. So congratulations, just let me know which one of my books you'd like, either DIY Lithium Batteries, if you want to build a DIY battery like I did, DIY Solar Power, the Ultimate Do-It-Yourself E-Bike Guide, or Electric Motorcycles, and let me know where to send it. And anybody else who wants a chance to win one of my books for free, all you have to do is put a comment down below. You can say anything you like, and hopefully you'll be the randomly selected commenter at the end of my next video. And if you guys don't want to wait that long, you can always find my books on Amazon. All right, thanks for sticking with me, everybody. We'll see you next time.